Imagine a topic so deeply personal, yet so universally experienced. A subject that crosses all borders, all ages, all genders, and all belief systems. Something that happens in silence, often behind closed doors, and yet affects almost every single human being on this planet. It's something we don't talk about in public. It's something that makes people uncomfortable to even name out loud. And yet, it's as natural as breathing, as human as laughter, and as misunderstood as anything in the world of health and wellness. That topic is masturbation. From the moment we become aware of our bodies, we start exploring them. Curiosity leads to discovery, and discovery leads to questions. Questions no one wants to answer. Instead of guidance, we get warnings. Instead of truth, we get fear. It will make you blind. It will weaken your body. It's dirty. It's shameful. These are the whispers passed down through generations. These are the lies that shape our understanding before science ever gets the chance to speak. But what if everything you thought you knew about masturbation was wrong? What if this one natural act, long considered taboo, was actually good for you? What if the body's most intimate function was also one of its most powerful tools for self-care, mental balance, and physical health? And what if the real danger wasn't in the act itself, but in the silence that surrounds it? Right now, there are millions of people living in guilt. Not because they've hurt anyone, not because they've committed a crime, but because they've been told by family, religion, or society that touching their own body is sinful. They carry this invisible burden of shame every day, every night, every time their desires rise like a wave they're not allowed to surf. And that shame, that silence, it does more damage than the act ever could. Because shame doesn't educate. It isolates. It turns something natural into something dirty. It turns normal behavior into hidden secrets. It creates emotional wounds, the kind that don't bleed but never really heal. And in the absence of facts, myths grow like weeds. Weeds that choke curiosity. Weeds that strangle confidence. Weeds that turn young, curious minds into anxious, fearful souls. Think about it. When was the last time someone spoke to you openly, respectfully about masturbation? Not as a joke, not as a dirty secret, not in a hushed tone, but as a genuine conversation? Probably never. And that's the problem. In a world of Google searches and social media scrolls, misinformation is only a click away. And when we don't teach the truth, people start to believe the lies. Lies that say masturbation causes mental illness. Lies that say it drains your energy. Lies that say you'll lose muscle, lose memory, lose control over your own body. Lies that wrap around the mind like chains, tightening with every sleepless night of regret. But science tells a different story. Science tells us that masturbation can reduce stress, that it helps regulate mood, that it can improve sleep, strengthen the immune system, and even enhance our understanding of pleasure and intimacy. Science doesn't come from judgment. It comes from research, from observation, from understanding the body, not fearing it. And yet, despite all the data, all the studies, all the proof, most people are still too afraid to ask the most basic question: is it okay? That's the question that echoes in the minds of millions, quietly, anxiously, desperately. And today, for once, we're going to answer it. Not with shame, not with fear, but with science, with honesty, with the kind of clarity that breaks chains, not builds them. Because this isn't just about sex. It's about mental health. It's about confidence. It's about the right to understand your body without being punished for it. It's about removing the guilt that's been poured like poison into the hearts of good people, simply because they were never given the truth. So here's the truth. You are not broken. You are not bad. You are not dirty for doing something your body was built to do. And whether you do it once a day, once a week, or not at all, you deserve to know what it means, what it does, and what science says about it. This is not about pushing you to act. It's about pulling you out of the shadows. It's about replacing myths with facts, replacing fear with understanding, replacing shame with self-awareness. So if you've ever asked yourself, is masturbation healthy or harmful? Stay with me. You're not alone. You've never been alone. And today you get the answer you always deserved. The biology behind masturbation. Let's begin at the core, not with philosophy, not with opinions, but with biology. Let's strip away the emotion, the judgment, and the cultural noise and simply ask, what actually happens inside the body when a person masturbates? What does science say about the process, the function, and the outcome? Biologically speaking, masturbation is the self-stimulation of the genitals that often leads to orgasm, but that simple definition doesn't capture the incredible complexity of what's happening behind the scenes. When a person begins to stimulate themselves, the brain becomes the first and most active organ involved. The hypothalamus and pituitary gland, two small regions deep in the brain, start sending out powerful signals. These signals trigger the release of chemicals: dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and endorphins. Dopamine is the reward chemical. It makes you feel pleasure. It's the same neurotransmitter that floods your brain when you accomplish something, win a game, or eat your favorite food. When dopamine rises during masturbation, it creates a sense of satisfaction and release. That's not a spiritual mystery. That's brain chemistry doing exactly what it was designed to do. Then comes serotonin, the mood stabilizer. It creates feelings of calm, peace, and contentment after orgasm. It's why people often feel relaxed and sleepy after masturbation. In fact, some sleep researchers have noted that post-orgasm relaxation can be as effective as certain medications for falling asleep, especially in people with anxiety-driven insomnia. Next is oxytocin, often called the cuddle hormone. This is the same chemical that floods the body during childbirth, breastfeeding, and romantic bonding. Oxytocin increases feelings of trust and reduces stress. It's released whether the orgasm comes from a partner or from yourself. That's a biological reminder that pleasure isn't just about reproduction. It's also about connection, even if that connection is internal. And finally, endorphins. These are the body's natural painkillers. They reduce physical discomfort and emotional distress. They create a natural high, a warm sense of ease that lowers blood pressure, slows the heart rate, and resets the nervous system. All of this from a few minutes of personal intimacy. And here's where the misinformation begins to collapse. Because for generations, people were taught that masturbation drained the body, that it stole energy, that it weakened muscles, memory, and even the soul. But when you look at the neurochemical reality, what you actually see is restoration. Masturbation can help calm anxiety, soothe pain, balance emotions, and regulate hormones. That's not weakness. That's the body returning to harmony. But what about the reproductive system? Does frequent ejaculation harm fertility? Reduce sperm count? Damage sexual performance? The science says no, not in healthy individuals. In fact, for men, regular ejaculation has been linked with a reduction in the risk of prostate cancer. A landmark Harvard study found that men who ejaculated more than 21 times a month had a significantly lower risk of developing prostate cancer compared to those who ejaculated less. Why? Because regular release clears out old fluids, reduces inflammation, and supports prostate health. For women, masturbation helps increase vaginal lubrication, strengthens pelvic floor muscles, and enhances blood flow to the reproductive organs. This can reduce menstrual cramps and improve comfort during partnered sex and support overall vaginal health. In fact, some gynecologists recommend masturbation as a form of therapy for women dealing with pain during intercourse or hormonal imbalances. Let's also talk about immune function. Stress is one of the biggest enemies of the immune system, and masturbation, as we've seen, reduces stress hormones like cortisol. That means your immune cells can function better, your inflammation levels drop, and your body becomes more resilient against everyday illnesses. It's not magic. It's biology doing its job. Now let's go deeper, because masturbation is not just about chemicals and physical health. It also teaches the brain how to respond to pleasure. Neuroscientists call this sensory learning. When you explore your own body, you build neural pathways that tell your brain what feels good, what doesn't, and how your body reacts to different stimuli. That self-knowledge is not shameful. It's empowering. It helps people communicate better with their partners, understand their boundaries, and create healthier sexual relationships in the future. So, why, with all of this biological benefit, has masturbation been demonized for so long? Because fear is easier to teach than nuance. Because controlling people's sexuality has always been a way to control their behavior. And because science takes time to speak louder than superstition. But here's the truth. The body is not broken. Its design is not flawed. Masturbation is not a mistake of nature. It's a deeply intelligent, self-regulating function. It's built into our nervous system, our hormones, and our brain's architecture. And its purpose isn't just to release tension. It's to support physical balance, emotional well-being, and psychological understanding. Let's also clear up another lie, that masturbation is somehow abnormal, rare, or shameful. In reality, the majority of people, across all cultures, genders, and age groups, engage in it at some point in their lives. According to studies by the Kinsey Institute and other leading sexual health organizations, over 80% of men and 60% of women report masturbating regularly. Those numbers increase with education, openness, and access to honest sexual health resources. It's not a problem. It's a pattern, a biological rhythm, a quiet act of release in a noisy world. And yet, the damage of misinformation remains. So many people are still afraid of their own bodies. They've been taught that something natural is harmful, that something healing is sinful, and that something normal is something to hide. But you don't have to hide anymore. You don't have to carry the weight of lies passed down through generations of silence and fear. You can trust your body. You can trust the science. You can trust the truth that says you are not dirty, you are not weak, you are human. And your biology is not your enemy, it's your greatest ally. So the next time you hear someone say that masturbation is harmful, ask them, according to who? Because biology says otherwise, psychology says otherwise, medicine says otherwise. The science is in, the data is clear, the body knows what it's doing, and maybe it's time we listened. Mental health, relief, or risk? Let's move from the body to the mind. Because while the physical process of masturbation is rooted in biology, its effects on mental health are far more personal, emotional, and deeply misunderstood. This is where the conversation takes a more delicate turn, and where science becomes even more essential to separate truth from fear. Mental health isn't just about how you feel in a single moment. It's about patterns, coping mechanisms, emotional regulation, and how your brain handles stress, anxiety, pleasure, and guilt. And masturbation, whether done in a healthy way or in a harmful way, plays a significant role in that equation. Because masturbation isn't just a release, it's often a response. People turn to it for different reasons: boredom, curiosity, loneliness, stress, arousal, anxiety, sadness, or just a moment of peace when the world feels too heavy. And that's where things get nuanced. Masturbation, in moderation, has been shown to offer real mental health benefits. But when it becomes excessive, compulsive, or guilt-ridden, that's when the lines blur between relief and risk. Let's begin with the positive side, the side most people are too afraid to talk about. Scientific research shows that masturbation can help lower stress levels, reduce anxiety, promote better sleep, and elevate overall mood. This happens because, as we mentioned earlier, the brain releases a cocktail of feel-good chemicals: dopamine, serotonin, endorphins, and oxytocin. But what does that really mean in terms of mental health? Dopamine helps you feel joy and reward. It's why masturbation can serve as a healthy emotional reset, giving you a sense of control and satisfaction, especially after a stressful day or a period of mental tension. Serotonin helps you feel calm and balanced. It stabilizes emotions, reduces anxiety, and creates that post-orgasm tranquility many people experience. Endorphins reduce mental and physical pain. They act as natural antidepressants. And oxytocin? It fosters emotional connection and trust, even within yourself. So yes, from a purely psychological standpoint, masturbation can be a form of self-soothing, a moment of peace in a chaotic mind, a way to feel grounded, centered, and present in your own body. In fact, some therapists even recommend masturbation as a form of stress regulation, especially for people dealing with anxiety or emotional overwhelm. In a world where emotional outlets are often limited, where people are taught to suppress rather than express, this one private act can help release tension that might otherwise explode into anger, depression, or self-harm. But, and this is a big but, the benefits only exist when the behavior is healthy, mindful, and not compulsive. So what happens when it becomes a compulsion? Compulsive masturbation, when someone feels driven to do it repeatedly, excessively, and often in response to negative emotions, can have the opposite effect. Instead of relief, it leads to emotional numbness, guilt, and even shame. And here's where mental health truly becomes vulnerable. Many people who struggle with compulsive sexual behavior, including frequent masturbation, are not seeking pleasure. They're seeking escape. They're trying to run away from pain, trauma, boredom, anxiety, loneliness, or even self-hatred. In those cases, masturbation becomes a coping mechanism, not a conscious choice, but an automatic reflex, something they do to feel better, but end up feeling worse. This cycle creates a mental health trap. You feel stressed, you masturbate, you feel a temporary high, then guilt sets in, then shame, then stress returns, and the cycle begins again. Over time, this can lead to depression, low self-esteem, and even sexual dissatisfaction. The worst part? Most people suffer in silence. They think something's wrong with them. They believe they're broken, addicted, immoral. But what they really need isn't judgment. It's understanding. They need to realize that compulsive behavior is often a symptom, not the root problem. And just like with food, gaming, or social media, when masturbation becomes a way to avoid emotions instead of address them, it becomes unhealthy. There's also the issue of pornography, which often plays a role in modern masturbation habits. Excessive use of porn, especially high-intensity, unrealistic content, can rewire the brain's reward system. It can create distorted expectations, reduce sensitivity to real-life intimacy, and even lead to sexual dysfunction. But again, the problem isn't masturbation itself, it's how it's being used. Let's be very clear. Masturbation is not the enemy. Compulsion is, secrecy is, shame is. And when those three things are combined, they create emotional damage far worse than the act ever could. So how do you know if masturbation is helping your mental health or hurting it? Here are some signs it's healthy. You feel relaxed and at peace afterward. It doesn't interfere with your daily life, work, or relationships. You don't feel overwhelming guilt or shame. It's a choice, not a compulsion. It helps you feel more connected to yourself, not disconnected. Now here are some signs it might be hurting your mental health. You feel regret, shame, or emotional emptiness afterward. You're using it to escape emotional pain or trauma. You feel like you can't stop, even when you want to. It's interfering with your ability to focus, sleep, or function socially. You're isolating yourself or withdrawing from real relationships. And if you find yourself in the second list, know this: you are not alone. You are not weak. You are not broken. You're just caught in a pattern that your mind and body are using to cope. And there is help. Therapy, support groups, honest conversation. These are the tools that can bring healing, not judgment. In the end, masturbation and mental health are intimately connected. When practiced mindfully, it can be an act of self-love, a stress reliever, a confidence booster. But when tangled with guilt, compulsion, or trauma, it becomes a cry for help in disguise. So ask yourself, am I using this to heal or to hide? Because once you know that answer, you'll know what steps to take next. And whatever those steps are, they begin with honesty. Honesty with your body, honesty with your emotions, and honesty with your need for understanding, not shame. Because in the conversation about mental health, masturbation doesn't need to be a secret anymore. It needs to be understood. Myths busted by modern science. Now let's enter the battlefield, the place where confusion is born, where fear is nurtured, and where the truth has been buried for generations. Yes, we're talking about the myths, the lies, the rumors, the made-up rules that have been whispered in locker rooms, passed down by fearful parents, or shouted from pulpits, all without a shred of scientific proof. These myths have shaped the way millions of people view their own bodies, not with love, but with guilt. Let's be clear, masturbation is not new. It has existed as long as human beings have existed. But for most of history, the understanding of sexuality has been filtered through fear, control, and ignorance. People didn't talk about science, they talked about sin. They didn't look for evidence, they relied on shame. And what grew from that soil were some of the most damaging, ridiculous, and completely false beliefs you can imagine. So today, we're digging those myths out of the ground, one by one, and crushing them under the weight of modern science. Let's start with the classic. Myth 1. Masturbation drains your energy and makes you weak. This one has been around for centuries. People were told that ejaculating too much would cause fatigue, laziness, even physical deterioration. But here's what science says. Masturbation causes a temporary release of energy, yes, but it's followed by a natural state of relaxation and balance. Your body doesn't become weaker. It actually uses the process to regulate hormones, release tension, and restore chemical equilibrium in the brain. It's like working out. You might feel tired right after, but in the long run, it supports your body's well-being. No, it doesn't make you lazy. No, it doesn't kill your drive. And no, it doesn't sap your life force. That's not biology, that's bad storytelling. Myth 2. Masturbation causes blindness, hair loss, or infertility. Yes, believe it or not, there was a time when people were genuinely told that masturbating would make them go blind or lose their hair. These myths weren't just silly, they were dangerous, because they caused unnecessary fear and shame around something natural. Science has zero evidence linking masturbation to hair loss, blindness, or infertility. In fact, frequent ejaculation in healthy men does not reduce sperm count in any meaningful way. And for women, there's absolutely no negative effect on fertility from solo sexual activity. If anything, it improves reproductive health by promoting blood flow, reducing pelvic pain, and balancing hormones. Myth 3. It reduces testosterone levels in men. This is a big one, especially in the fitness world. Many men worry that masturbation will kill their testosterone and ruin their muscle growth, strength, or masculinity. But here's the truth. Testosterone levels may dip slightly after ejaculation, but they return to normal very quickly. There's no long-term loss, no hormonal crash, and no permanent damage to strength or performance. What does reduce testosterone? Chronic stress, poor sleep, and bad nutrition, not occasional masturbation. Myth 4. Only people who are lonely or desperate masturbate. This myth is especially cruel because it attaches shame to something natural. The truth is, people in loving, committed relationships masturbate. Happy couples masturbate. Married people, dating people, single people, all do it. In fact, in many cases, masturbation can enhance sexual satisfaction with a partner. It helps individuals understand what they like, which in turn makes communication and intimacy stronger in a relationship. So no, masturbation is not a sign of loneliness or failure. It's a sign of self-awareness. Myth 5. It's dirty or immoral. Here's where science steps into uncomfortable territory, because this myth isn't just based on biology. It's built on religion, tradition, and culture. Many people were taught from a young age that masturbation is a sin, an impurity, a spiritual failure. And while beliefs are personal and deserve respect, it's important to separate moral beliefs from medical facts. From a scientific and psychological standpoint, masturbation is a completely normal and harmless behavior when done in moderation. It doesn't hurt anyone. It doesn't cause physical damage. It doesn't poison the soul. The guilt people feel around it comes not from the act, but from the stories told about the act. Stories meant to control, not educate. Myth 6. You'll get addicted immediately. Let's be honest. Yes, compulsive masturbation can become a problem if it's used to escape emotions, trauma, or social interaction. But that's not the same as addiction in the medical sense. The vast majority of people masturbate without ever developing compulsive behavior. Addiction is about loss of control, negative consequences, and persistent use despite harm. If you're masturbating occasionally, mindfully, and without distress, it's not addiction, it's a choice, a release, a biological response to stress or desire. The truth is, any behavior, eating, gaming, even exercising, can become compulsive if used to numb emotional pain. Masturbation isn't the enemy, escapism is. Myth 7, it ruins your sex life. In reality, healthy masturbation habits can improve sexual performance, not destroy it. They help people learn what stimulates them, what doesn't, and how to communicate that with a partner. However, when masturbation is paired with excessive, unrealistic pornography, that's when problems can arise. Not because of the masturbation itself, but because the brain becomes conditioned to artificial stimulation, leading to reduced arousal during real intimacy. The solution isn't to fear masturbation, it's to be mindful of how and why you're doing it. Now ask yourself, how many of these myths were you told as a child? How many were whispered to you in moments of fear? How many did you believe, not because they made sense, but because no one ever gave you an alternative? This is what science is for. It exists to clear the fog, to silence the noise, and to give you the facts your mind and your body have always deserved. Because the truth is, masturbation isn't evil. It's not dangerous. It's not dirty. What's dangerous is a society that chooses silence over education. What's dirty is the guilt we force on people for simply being human. And what's truly harmful is the emotional damage caused by myths that were never rooted in science, but in fear. So from now on, when you hear someone repeat these myths, stop them. Ask them, where's the proof? Because science has spoken, and it's telling a very different story. The role of culture and religion. Now we step into one of the most sensitive, powerful, and deeply rooted forces shaping the way we see masturbation: culture and religion. Not science, not psychology, but centuries of belief systems, moral codes, and societal structures that have decided what is pure, what is dirty, and who gets to feel ashamed for simply being human. If biology explains the body and psychology explains the mind, then culture and religion explain the rules. And for many people across the world, those rules have not just shaped their behavior, they've shaped their identity, their guilt, their silence, and in some cases, their suffering. In many religious communities, masturbation is not just discouraged, it's condemned. It's labeled as a sin, a moral failure, a betrayal of spiritual discipline. Entire teachings have been built around the idea that sexual pleasure, especially when experienced alone, is wrong, even dangerous. In some cases, young boys and girls are taught that even thinking about it invites punishment. They are told that desire equals impurity, that arousal equals shame, that touching their own body is an act of spiritual corruption. But here's the truth that no one wants to say out loud. These beliefs are not biological. They are not medical, they are not scientific, they are cultural, and they're not universal. What's seen as sinful in one culture is seen as natural in another. What's punished in one religion is accepted in another. These are not laws of nature. They are laws of society, shaped by time, by leadership, by fear, and by control. And it's important to say this: faith itself is not the enemy. Many people find hope, strength, and guidance through their spiritual beliefs. Religion, when rooted in compassion, can bring peace, discipline, and purpose. But when it comes to sexuality, and especially masturbation, too often, faith has been used as a weapon, a tool to shame, a tool to silence, a tool to make people feel broken for experiencing something that their body was designed to do. Science, on the other hand, does not pass moral judgment. It does not say good or evil. It simply asks, what is true? What helps? What harms? And when it comes to masturbation, science says it is normal. It is natural. And when practiced in moderation, it is not harmful. But here's where the real danger comes in. When cultural and religious teachings conflict with natural biological urges, it creates an emotional war. The body says this feels right, but the belief says this is wrong. And the result is shame. Deep, invisible, life-altering shame. That shame doesn't just disappear. It hides in the corners of your thoughts. It shows up in your relationships. It makes you afraid of intimacy, afraid of your own body, and afraid to ask questions that deserve answers. People grow up believing they are sinful simply for being human. They carry that guilt into adulthood, into their marriages, into their mental health. In fact, multiple studies in psychology have shown a direct link between religious sexual guilt and increased anxiety, depression, and low self-esteem. People who believe that masturbation is morally wrong often report higher levels of distress, even when their behavior is completely within normal, healthy boundaries. It's not the act that's causing harm, it's the belief surrounding the act. And let's not forget, this isn't just a personal issue, it's also a gendered issue. In many cultures, boys are warned, but girls are silenced. Female masturbation is considered even more taboo, even more shameful, often erased completely from conversation, as if women aren't supposed to feel pleasure at all. As if understanding your own body as a woman is something to hide, not celebrate. This double standard creates lifelong consequences. Women are less likely to explore their bodies, less likely to understand their own sexual needs, and more likely to feel pain, confusion, or even fear around their own pleasure. That's not just sad, that's damaging. And it's not natural. It's cultural programming. We need to understand the difference. Masturbation isn't just a physical act. It's an emotional experience filtered through the beliefs we carry from childhood. And if those beliefs are toxic, the experience becomes toxic. But when the beliefs are educated, compassionate, and balanced, the experience can be healing, empowering, even spiritual in its own right. So here's the big question. Can you honor your faith and still accept your biology? The answer isn't black and white. It's personal, and it's yours to explore. No one can tell you what to believe. But what you do deserve, regardless of your religion, your culture, or your upbringing, is the truth. The truth that masturbation does not make you a bad person. The truth that curiosity about your body is not shameful. The truth that you are not alone. Across every continent, every country, every belief system, there are people just like you. People who have felt confused, scared, ashamed, curious, relieved, and human. People who have touched themselves in the quiet of the night and wondered if it meant they were broken. People who have been told to feel guilt when they deserved understanding. So here's a new idea. Maybe it's not about choosing between science and faith. Maybe it's about balance. Maybe it's about letting science speak about the body while letting faith guide the soul. Maybe it's about asking better questions and being brave enough to hear the answers, even if they're uncomfortable, because silence breeds shame, but conversation creates clarity, and clarity is what sets us free. So whatever your beliefs are, hold them with integrity, but also hold space for truth, for science, for compassion, for your own body. Because in the end, your body is not your enemy, and understanding it is not a betrayal of your beliefs. It's an act of self-respect. Let's stop using culture and religion as reasons to shame people for being human. Let's start using them as tools to build love, discipline, and dignity without fear. Let's start talking physical health, the real impact. Let's now shift our focus from the emotional and cultural to the clinical, the raw, biological reality of what masturbation does to the body. No superstition, no assumptions, just physiology, anatomy, and observable medical facts. Because beyond all the myths, beyond the moral arguments, there's one question that matters more than anything else. What is the real impact of masturbation on your physical health? The human body is a system, complex, interconnected, and finely tuned. Every function it performs has a reason. Breathing regulates oxygen, eating fuels energy, and yes, sexual release plays a role too. It's not just about reproduction. It's about balance, hormonal, muscular, neurological, and even immune-related. And masturbation, when practiced in moderation, contributes to that balance in multiple scientifically proven ways. Let's begin with the most obvious benefit, tension release. During masturbation, as arousal builds, the body undergoes a series of muscular contractions. Blood pressure rises slightly, the heart rate increases, breathing becomes deeper, and then in the moment of orgasm, all of that tension is released in a wave of muscle relaxation and hormonal recalibration. This isn't just about pleasure, it's about physical reset. After climax, the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest system, takes over. Heart rate slows, muscles loosen, blood vessels dilate, cortisol, the stress hormone, drops, and a rush of calming neurochemicals like oxytocin and prolactin begin to circulate through your bloodstream. The result? A body that was tense becomes calm. A mind that was anxious becomes quiet. This is not spiritual guesswork. It's neuroendocrinology in action. Now let's go deeper into the specifics. Prostate health for men. Multiple studies, including one from the Harvard Medical School, show that men who ejaculate more frequently, approximately 21 times per month, have a significantly lower risk of developing prostate cancer. The theory is simple. Regular ejaculation helps flush out harmful substances from the prostate gland and promotes healthy blood flow, reducing stagnation and inflammation. Menstrual and pelvic health for women. For women, masturbation has been shown to help with menstrual cramps, pelvic tension, and vaginal discomfort. Orgasms stimulate blood flow, trigger muscle contractions that relax the uterus, and release natural painkillers that can ease both emotional and physical strain. Additionally, consistent sexual stimulation helps maintain healthy vaginal lubrication and elasticity, especially in older women. Pelvic floor strength for all genders. When you orgasm, your pelvic floor muscles, the same ones responsible for bladder control, core strength, and sexual function, contract rhythmically. These contractions strengthen the area over time, similar to Kegel exercises. A healthy pelvic floor means better control, less risk of urinary issues, and even more satisfying sexual experiences. Better sleep. Many people use masturbation as a natural sleep aid, and science backs this up. The hormonal cascade after orgasm includes serotonin and oxytocin, which promote feelings of relaxation, safety, and comfort. Studies show that these chemicals help reduce sleep latency, the time it takes to fall asleep, making masturbation a safer alternative to sleep medications for some individuals. Pain relief. Believe it or not, masturbation can also help with headaches and migraines. While it may sound counterintuitive, some research suggests that orgasm can relieve migraine pain through the release of endorphins and vasodilation, the widening of blood vessels. Though it might not work for everyone, a number of people report improvement in pain levels post-release. Immune system support. Stress is a major suppressor of the immune system. High cortisol levels reduce the production of white blood cells, the body's defenders against disease. Masturbation helps lower cortisol and increase immunoglobulin A, a key antibody in your immune system. That means fewer colds, quicker recovery times, and a stronger barrier between you and the viruses of everyday life. Cardiovascular benefits. During arousal and climax, the cardiovascular system gets a mini workout. The heart rate rises, breathing deepens, and blood circulates more rapidly. This temporary increase in heart activity is similar to light exercise, and when paired with the stress relief benefits, it can contribute to better blood pressure regulation and overall heart health, especially in older adults. But let's be honest, just like anything else in life, too much of anything becomes harmful, even something natural, even something healthy. Excessive or compulsive masturbation, especially when accompanied by high-intensity pornography, unrealistic expectations, or aggressive physical habits, can lead to problems. Friction injuries. Overstimulation or using improper technique can cause skin irritation, swelling, or nerve sensitivity, particularly in men. In rare cases, aggressive behavior can lead to long-term sensitivity loss or performance anxiety. Desensitization. Constant high-intensity stimulation, especially with excessive porn, can train the brain to need unnaturally strong stimuli for arousal. This can lead to difficulties in real-life sexual experiences where the body may not respond the same way without artificial triggers. Hormonal imbalance. In extreme cases, while masturbation itself doesn't throw off hormone levels, constant overstimulation can cause a short-term emotional crash. Feelings of guilt, brain fog, and irritability may follow if the behavior is driven by compulsion or used as an emotional crutch. Fatigue and distraction. If masturbation becomes a form of procrastination or emotional escape, it can affect focus, productivity, and even physical energy. Not because of the act itself, but because of what it's replacing: sleep, movement, real-world interaction. But again, let's not blame masturbation for misuse. That's like blaming food for obesity or phones for addiction. It's not the tool. It's the balance. It's the context. It's the intention behind the action. When masturbation is approached with awareness, respect, and moderation, it becomes a tool for healing, not harm. A moment of relief, not regret. A form of self-care, not self-destruction. So the next time someone tells you that masturbation will destroy your body, ask them for the proof. Because modern medicine tells a very different story. It tells a story of relaxation, of hormone balance, of pain relief, of prostate protection, of menstrual health, of improved sleep, of better cardiovascular function, of stronger immunity. It tells a story of a body that knows exactly what it's doing, when we let it. The real danger isn't in the act, it's in the ignorance surrounding the act. So let's replace fear with facts. Let's replace secrecy with science. And most of all, let's give ourselves permission to understand the body, not as something to control, but as something to care for. Because when it comes to physical health, masturbation, when practiced with respect, is not your enemy. It's just another way your body whispers, "I know how to help you," if you'll just listen. Masturbation and sexuality, self-knowledge or self-sabotage. Now let's go to the heart of what most people are afraid to ask. Does masturbation harm your sexual life? Or does it actually improve it? Because behind the science, beyond the myths, and beneath all the shame, there's a quiet question people carry deep inside. If I do this too much, will I ruin myself for real love? Will I lose interest in my partner? Will I become numb, addicted, or unable to perform? And the answer is not black and white, but it is clear. Masturbation is not the opposite of a healthy sex life. In fact, when practiced consciously, it can be the foundation of one. Let's start at the beginning. Self-awareness. Your sexuality doesn't start with someone else. It starts with you, with understanding your desires, your reactions, your boundaries, your fantasies, your emotional triggers, and your physical responses. Masturbation, when done without shame, becomes a mirror, a way to learn what you enjoy, what brings you release, what feels good, and what doesn't. And this matters, because people who know their bodies communicate better in relationships. They're more confident. They're less likely to fake it. They're more likely to engage in mutual satisfaction, instead of guessing, hesitating, or suppressing. Sex is not just about bodies, it's about communication. And communication starts with knowing yourself first. Now let's talk about performance. Some people fear that masturbation, especially in excess, will lead to sexual dysfunction. For example, in men, it's often feared to cause erectile dysfunction or premature ejaculation. In women, it's feared to dull the sensitivity needed for orgasm during partnered sex. But science draws a very important line. Context matters. Occasional, moderate masturbation is not linked to sexual dysfunction, but excessive use, especially when combined with hyperstimulating pornography or unrealistic scenarios, can rewire the brain. This happens because of a process called neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to adapt to repeated patterns. If the only way you experience arousal is through intense, rapid, constantly new visual stimulation, like switching videos every few minutes, your brain begins to associate arousal with that format only. So what happens when you try to be intimate with a real person in a real moment with real human interaction? You might struggle to feel excited, you might feel distracted, you might not reach climax, or, worse, you might feel numb altogether. This isn't because you're broken, it's because the brain was trained to react to something artificial, not because of masturbation itself, but because of the environment in which it was practiced. That's why some experts now warn of porn-induced sexual dysfunction, where the real issue is not the act of masturbation, but the type of stimulation it's attached to. So the key is mindfulness. If your solo sexual habits are respectful, gentle, conscious, and done without shame or rush, they can enhance your sexual life. They can improve stamina, emotional understanding, and connection with your partner. They can even be shared within relationships, helping partners explore fantasies, sync their rhythms, and build trust. But if those habits become compulsive, disconnected, or overly dependent on unrealistic imagery, they can start to undermine intimacy. Let's also talk about something few dare to say. Masturbation can help people avoid toxic or unsafe sexual situations. Not everyone has a loving partner. Not everyone is in a relationship. And not everyone is ready for sex. For those people, masturbation becomes a safe, private, and non-destructive outlet. It helps release tension without exposing them to emotional damage, unwanted pregnancies, STDs, or manipulative partners. In this way, masturbation is not a threat to real sex. It's a guardrail, a boundary, a temporary space for the body to stay centered until the heart is ready. And still, many people carry the fear that too much solo activity will ruin partnered intimacy forever. But the truth is, it's not about frequency. It's about function. Are you doing it out of curiosity or to avoid closeness? Are you exploring pleasure or escaping emotions? Are you learning your body or numbing your pain? The why always matters more than the how often. One more point. Masturbation can help people who experience sexual trauma. For survivors, intimacy can be frightening. Masturbation can be a gentle way to reconnect with the body, to learn safe touch, to rebuild trust in physical sensation. On their own terms, it becomes a tool for healing, not harm. For many, it's the only form of sexuality that feels safe, and science supports this, showing that body autonomy, self-exploration, and conscious arousal are part of recovery. So in the context of sexuality, here's the bottom line. Masturbation is not your enemy, but mindless, compulsive, guilt-driven behavior can be. So can unrealistic porn. So can isolation. So can silence. But when masturbation is approached with self-respect, curiosity, and balance, it becomes a part of healthy sexuality, not a threat to it. It teaches you your limits. It helps you express your needs. It grounds you in your own body. And it reminds you, pleasure is not something to fear. It's something to understand. So don't let anyone tell you that masturbation will ruin your love life. Don't let fear replace fact. Don't let shame decide your worth. Because when practiced consciously, masturbation is not a form of self-sabotage. It is self-knowledge. And knowledge, especially of your own body, is the beginning of every real, lasting, and meaningful connection you will ever have. The balance. When is it too much? So we've seen the science, explored the psychology, challenged the myths, and even faced the emotional weight of culture and belief. Now it all comes down to one final question. The one that separates healthy behavior from harmful habit. When is masturbation too much? Because let's be honest, while science defends it, while culture argues over it, and while individuals experience it in vastly different ways, there is a tipping point. A moment when what once served you starts to consume you. And understanding that threshold, that delicate line between pleasure and problem, is where the real conversation begins. Let's make one thing very clear up front. It's not about how many times per week. There is no universal number, no chart, no formula. Masturbating once a day doesn't make you an addict. Once a month doesn't make you a saint. Everyone is different. Every body is different. Every emotional need is different. What matters is intention. What matters is impact. And what matters most, is control. So when is masturbation too much? Here are the signs, subtle at first, but powerful when ignored. When it interferes with your daily life. If you find yourself skipping responsibilities, missing deadlines, or avoiding social interaction because you're prioritizing masturbation, it may be a red flag. Pleasure is healthy. Escape is not. And when the desire to feel good overrides your real-life obligations, it stops being about self-care and starts becoming a coping mechanism. When it's used to numb emotional pain, we all have bad days. But if you're using masturbation to block out sadness, anxiety, loneliness, or anger, you're not solving those feelings. You're burying them. And buried emotions don't disappear. They rot beneath the surface and resurface in other harmful ways. Masturbation becomes too much when it's no longer about pleasure, but about avoidance. When it feels like compulsion, not choice. Do you feel like you have to do it? Even when you don't want to? Even when you know you shouldn't? That's not desire. That's compulsion. And compulsive behavior, by definition, is behavior you can't easily control. Masturbation that feels automatic, driven, or obsessive may signal deeper psychological issues that deserve attention. Not shame, but support. When it leads to guilt, shame, or regret, repeatedly. A little discomfort is normal if you've been raised in environments of fear or silence. But consistent, intense shame after masturbation is not a sign of morality. It's a sign that your emotional relationship with the act is wounded, especially if that shame becomes a cycle. Arousal, release, guilt, shame, repeat. This emotional loop can damage your self-worth over time when it interferes with real intimacy. If you find yourself choosing masturbation over connection, not occasionally, but constantly, it may be time to ask why. Is it about convenience? Control? Fear? Trust? Solo sex should not replace real intimacy. It should prepare you for it by helping you understand your needs, emotions, and body. But if you're avoiding vulnerability with others because solo release feels safer, you may be using it as a wall, not a bridge. When it's tied to unrealistic expectations, especially via porn. Porn isn't inherently evil, but excessive, high-intensity porn can rewire your brain to only respond to fantasy, not reality. If your arousal depends on extreme or constant novelty, and real-life connection feels dull in comparison, your neural pathways may be overexposed. That doesn't mean you're broken. It means your brain is trained, and it can be retrained with time, patience, and intention. When it affects physical sensitivity or causes pain, the body knows. If you're feeling soreness, numbness, skin irritation, or even nerve sensitivity after masturbating, you may be overdoing it physically. The goal isn't exhaustion, it's relaxation. If the body is sending warning signals, listen. More is not always better. But now, the more important side of the conversation. How do you find the right balance? It's simple, but not always easy. You ask yourself, why am I doing this? You listen to how your body responds afterward. You reflect on whether it's bringing you peace or pulling you further into yourself. Here are a few questions to guide your awareness. Am I doing this out of habit or desire? Do I feel more relaxed after or more hollow? Is this helping me explore myself or avoid something else? Is it enhancing my real relationships or replacing them? Can I take a break if I want to, or does the urge control me? Your answers won't always be perfect, but they'll be honest. And honesty is where healing begins, because masturbation is not about right or wrong. It's about relationship. The relationship between you and your body, your emotions, your patterns, and your values. When that relationship is healthy, masturbation is just another way of knowing yourself. When that relationship is wounded, it becomes a symptom of deeper pain. So let this final key point be the reminder. There's nothing wrong with you for wanting pleasure. There's nothing broken about needing release. But when pleasure turns into a prison, that's when it's time to reach for understanding. And the answer isn't always to stop. Sometimes it's to pause, to reflect, to reset. Because your body speaks, your habits whisper, and your mind, whether calm or chaotic, is always telling you something. And the courage isn't in quitting. The courage is in listening. Because balance doesn't come from fear. It comes from truth, from intention, from knowing when to say yes and when to say not now. And when you master that, you master not just your body, but your life. The truth your body deserves. So after all the myths, fears, science, and silence, what's the final truth? Masturbation is not a disease. It's not a moral failure. It's not a dark secret to hide in shame. It is biology. It is natural. It is normal. And when practiced in moderation with mindfulness, it can be a powerful tool for stress relief, for self-awareness, for healing, and for better understanding of your body's language. But here's what matters most. You were never meant to feel guilty for knowing yourself. You were never meant to be afraid of your own body. And you were never meant to carry the weight of silence passed down from generations too afraid to speak truth. Science does not judge. It observes. It doesn't shame you. It informs you. And it says clearly, when masturbation is understood, not feared, respected, not abused, it is not harmful. It is healthy. So ask yourself, is your relationship with your body built on fear or on facts? Because your body is not the enemy. Your biology is not the problem. The problem is silence. The problem is shame. And the solution is education, compassion, and choice. You deserve to understand the truth. You deserve to let go of guilt that was never yours to carry. And you deserve to experience your body, not as a battleground, but as a home that speaks, a home that feels, a home that has always known how to take care of you, if you'd only listen.